So for the first session, we'll start with introduction to ecology and understanding its component and scales. So in August 1995, a group of elementary and middle school students for a project collected few leopard frogs. Out of the 22 frogs they collected, 11 of them were deformed. Now deformed in the sense they either had a pair of extra limbs or an extra limb or a limb was missing or the limbs were bent in weird places. So they informed the pollution control agency about this, and after survey the pollution control agency found that 30 to 40% of the frog species of that pond were affected and had deformities in the limbs. The news of this discovery spread fast, and after multiple survey across the USA, it was found that 60 species of frogs from 46 states had shown multiple sorts of deformities. And in turn, this phenomenon was tested worldwide, and it was seen in many species that similar kind of effects and deformities and other problems were seen. Now the other problem is decline. Many of the frog species were missing or getting endangered, or the population of frogs were lowering down. Now this was a call for a global decline to see how frog population were declining over different populations of the places, and it was seen that in different continents throughout the world, population of frogs were declining and had reached a point of extinction. Either they were critically endangered, missing out of the places, or endangered, vulnerable to decline. So this global phenomenon was tested after a local observation. It was continuously tested by different people, but it was highlighted as an effect which started from a local observation. So the point here is a local observation can be studied as a part of a global phenomenon. We understood the problem, but scientists were worried about related problems and found three reasons to be worried for amphibians. One, this decline has been recently started. Two, the decline of the population was majorly seen in untouched, undisturbed, and pristine regions. Three, amphibians were considered as bioindicators. Bioindicators because of many reasons. The main reasons are: one, they have a penetrable skin. The skin is very thin, so different kind of chemicals, fertilizers, etc. can penetrate through them. Apart from that, their young ones or the tadpoles and the eggs do not have any kind of shell, so it is easy for a chemical to penetrate inside and change their physiological activities. Now the second point is the amphibians have a limited accessible area and they do not go out that much out of their territory. So the movement of frogs or amphibians are restricted to a particular region, and if that region is affected, then eventually they show a drastic change. So we all understood what is the problem. Now these problems kept scientists wondering about what is the cause or root of the problem. And this phenomenon was also seen in other species, as I was saying. So one of the species was Pacific tree frog or Pseudacus flagella. So primarily people thought that it might be caused due to a pollutant or a chemical fertilizer or something like that. But eventually it was found now this is caused by a specific parasitic flatworm called as Riberoia ondatra, or we will follow uply called as Riberoia. So the Riberoia attaches its cyst during the developmental stages or the metamorphosis of the frog, specifically at the site of limb development in case of tadpoles. So to understand if Riberoia is the causative agent of these deformities, Johnson et al. In 2000 conducted an experiment where they put 4 containers and they found 50 eggs of Pseudacus flagella and put it in 4 containers and subjected all these containers to different amount of Riberoia's cysts. So the first one was control and contained 0 parasites, and second one contains 16, 32 and 48. Now these numbers were put up according to the amount of parasite that were found from the bodies or the ponds from where the frogs were collected. Okay, so in this experiment, this is a laboratory controlled experiment. Okay, we call these experiments controlled experiments, and the following results were found, which is shown in the form of graph. Here we can see that the number of parasites is affecting the survivorship. So as we can see, if the number of parasite is increasing, if it is increasing, then the survivorship of the tadpoles are going down. They found out that parasites are the cause of these deformities. So 60% of the frogs that were subjected to parasite died due to multiple deformities. Okay, so here we are talking about an controlled ecological experiment to find the solution of a problem or to find the reason of a problem. So the point here is that ecological experiments have their incitement in the labs as well, and few of the questions, ecological questions, need to be addressed in labs. So to do extensive study, Session and Ruth conducted experiments during the developmental stages of these frogs. And the main intention was to find if these parasites release some kind of chemical intoxicants which cause these deformities, or if they had a physical effect. So the results that they found was the structure of the cyst caused these kind of issues. Now when a tadpole is in during its limb generation stage or the limb bud stage, so the cyst attached to these positions where the limb was generating. After metamorphosis, these caused these deformities. So in order to test that, what they did is they attached glass beads to these regions and found that glass beads also had similar effects to those of the parasites. So this was a developmental study that they did. So here we are seeing two different kind of study. One was ecological study, which was related to understand the effect of parasite and the numbers on them, and second was a developmental study. So to have a deeper understanding, let's go and study the life cycle of this parasite. Now it's very interesting. The life cycle of these parasites have two intermediate hosts and one definitive host. So the intermediate host is usually a snail and an amphibian or a fish. So the asexual reproduction of the larval stages of this flatworm happens inside a snail, and then it releases the Cercaria larva, which then attaches itself to amphibian limbs. Now they form cysts around these regions, and these causes the deformities. Then these frogs or deformed frogs are then eaten by the bird, which is a definitive host, and these bird carry these parasite and release in the form of feces to a particular pond, and then which is again carried by snails. The interesting part here is that these deformities are caused due to an evolutionary process. There is a benefit for the flatworms for causing these kind of deformities. The reason being, if they cause these deformities in the intermediate host, then it will be easier to be eaten by the definitive host. So they can only reproduce sexually inside the definitive host, hence they need to be fed inside the bird. So this is an evolutionary functional benefit that they have caused by causing these deformities in frogs. So here it shows a very interesting circle of life, the life cycles and adaptation that happens for the host and the parasite. And here we also can see the circulating food chain as well as interaction of different kind of organisms, may it be flatworm, may it be a mollusk, may it be a amphibian, may it be a bird, and how they are all interrelated to each other and how evolution functions in all of them. So many scientists suspected that these flatworms are not the only reason for these kind of deformities, and there might be additional causative agents as well. And there might be additional factor which are the reason for this increasing deformities in the frogs, which are found in populations throughout the USA and worldwide. So to do an experiment, Kiesecker established these setups. So he planned a very interesting experiment where he planted 4 different setups. These setups were formed in square meshes and the tadpoles were released inside the meshes. Okay, so the four different setups were a 2 by 2 factorial setup. This is called a 2 by 2 factorial setup where there are two factors and four setups. So one of them had no pesticide and the mesh size was 75 micrometer. In 75 micrometer mesh size, Ribeiroia's entry was prevented. So the mesh size was so small that Ribeiroia couldn't enter, but the pesticide could enter. Okay. For the 500 micrometer mesh size, Ribeiroia can easily enter. So the setup was to test what is the effect in the presence of pesticide and in the absence of pesticide of the parasite. Okay. So he tested and found that 29% of the frogs were deformed in the presence of the pesticides. So here we could easily understand that a pesticides present puts additional effect on the deformities and the presence of Ribeiroia. So one of the primary conclusions that they drew is the pesticides accumulate in the waters, which result in the formation of algae, which are the food for these flatworms as well as the snails. And incidentally, these result in the rise of the parasites. This is one of the reason of the changes that is happening in the surrounding, but they also suspected that this not might be the only reason of the pesticides causing these parasitic infections and the increase of the deformities. Eventually, in the other studies, they found out that these pesticides have direct effect on the immune system of the frog. So they found that the frogs which were subjected to higher concentration of pesticides had fewer eosinophils. So they prepare a setup of 4 containers in which different amounts of the pesticide were subjected. One was control, other was solvent control. The solvent control here refers to the addition of only the solvent in which the pesticide was dissolved. Okay, so for example, if we say if water was a solvent, then there was just addition of water to this control experiment. Okay, or it could be other like glycerin, it could be alcohol or something like that. So to see how the presence of pesticide and the very variable ranges of the pesticide could affect the immune system of the frogs, so this experiment was conducted, and it was found that in the absence of pesticide they had good number of eosinophils, and in the presence they showed lower number of eosinophils, and in the presence of pesticide there was increase in Ribeiroia cysts. So both of the things were there, like, so the pesticide was affecting directly and there was an indirect effect by increase in the number of Ribeiroia. The point here is we conducted different variable experiment. One was a controlled experiment where we saw how the number of parasites affected the individuals and their survivorship, and then we saw how experiment conducted in the developmental stages can also see possible effects in the adult lifetime. Then we studied about the life cycle. Okay, and then we understood how different field experiments were conducted, where it was shown a 2 by 2 factorial setup to understand the different effects of multiple factors, not only the parasite but also the effect of pesticide. And then we saw how immunological experiments were conducted to understand the effect of the pesticide as well as Ribeiroia in the frog or the subject. So here what I'm trying to say is the ecology, the part where we are going to study ecology is not only with the field or with the labs. This experiment, this idea of the frog that I gave you, the experiment which we discussed, encompasses different aspects of ecology that we'll study. So it contains field study, it contains controlled lab experiment, it contains different developmental experiment, it contains immunological studies, cell biological studies, and many different aspects.